Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Battle for Azeroth. We are in the pre-patch before the pre-event starts. And I wanted to give my impressions, my opinion, if you will, on the stat squish. I have been able to do a few more things on live than I was able to do on beta, namely Battlegrounds, PvP, and I've had a different experience depending on what I've done. So I'm going to break this down into questing, dungeons, and Battlegrounds PvP. And I say PvP to include war mode, which may not necessarily be in a battleground. So I made the statement that I had a harder time questing than doing dungeons, and I think that's still true. Just because of the stats change, and that was more my focus on making this, as I've seen now that the pre-patch is live, about the biggest thing that came with the pre-patch was the stat squish. And I've seen people get on, try out different tunes, and then they come back and say, oh, well, this tune isn't, isn't as good as it was in Legion, and so forth and so on. Normally, when people have had a complaint or a criticism about a class, it's because Blizzard removed half their spells and redid their talents, and it doesn't play the same, it doesn't feel the same. It's just, they've kind of overhauled it or nerfed it or something. That is not the case in Battle for Azeroth. We have most of our spells, our talents really haven't changed. If they've changed, it's because they've brought back older spells, or abilities, I should say. So I would stress that it's going to take some time to get used to the stats change. I know from my own experience, when I made the video for Hunter, kind of my overview of Hunter, I played through the intro campaign for the Horde side. I only played on survival. When the pre-patch went live, I got on my Hunter and got on setup marksmanship, because that was the spec I played the most in Legion. And it, even though I had all my abilities, it didn't quite play the same. Didn't quite feel the same. Which I didn't expect it would. If you don't have as big in numbers, you're not going to have as big of damage and healing and things like that. And everything does, keep in mind, everything does scale with your character level. That said, I had the added difficulty, if not frustration, of trying to work in a new ability into the rotation, which I ended up just not using at all because I figured out I didn't need it. So once I kind of figured things out, then I was fine. I killed a bunch of mobs. I killed an elite. I killed like a go find this person and bring me their whatever kind of quest, kind of a mini boss kind of thing. and that was fine. Once I got a hang of it, got familiar with things again, um, I, I was fine. So I think the stats change is just going to um, be a bit of a learning curve, I guess would be the way to put it. Um, uh, dungeons are the easiest thing. I have done in both beta and live, which I'm a little disappointed. Again, as I said, I expect some level of competency with the dungeon group. I expect people to have to be doing things. Um, and now granted, this is end game Legion. People are geared the way they're supposed to. People have just done the Mage Tower, so they're familiar with their classes. They're in sync, so to speak, with how everything works. Even still, on beta, that was the thing that I was disappointed about. Was a lot of us were just in green gear, and we were face rolling everything. No problem. We never at no point did we wipe and have to go back and go, okay, what did we do wrong there? So I'm not saying we need cataclysm difficulty dungeons. Um, I would just when you queue into a group and you're you're not having any difficulty really, and you're sitting there going, why am I doing this? That's disappointing. And I used to, for me, when I started playing, dungeons were a really big thing. Um, when I discovered dungeons, I all but quit questing for the most part, up until like some of the higher levels. When you got to do some of the more of like the neutral zones or the just the higher end zones, like around Northrend. There's a few zones in Northrend I like to go to. That seems to be when I start going out questing. Um, is around the Lich King expansion. Um, PvP Battlegrounds haven't changed really, which I think is good. I was I was concerned that you were going to start queuing in and people were just going to kind of be one-shotting you, which is what PvP is kind of known for. People setting up macros and things like that. And I've done a few on Alliance and I've done a few on Horde, and there was really no change. Yeah, it's still more about strategy and teamwork um, than anything else on most battlegrounds. So I think the way they have that is pretty balanced. Your legendaries, your effects disable, your trinket effects disable, your I think if you have a tier set, I think the bonuses disable. I think the bonuses have been taken out now that we're in the pre-patch, actually. Um, I know they either get nerfed, deactivated, or completely taken out at some point. So it's just, and then your stats get leveled out across the board. I think that's the principle of war buff you get when you enter a battleground. So I can't see anybody flocking to PvP. I can't see anybody that would protest by stop playing PvP. Um, So, which is good. I was at first I wasn't sure kind of how I thought how I felt about it. Um, I've done more PvP in Legion than I probably have in any other expansion I've played, and from that standpoint, I was glad. I've had some of the more um, I've had some of the more memorable times being in PvP than I have doing some of the other things than raids or dungeons or things like that. As a side note, um, people seem to be with the war mode. People seem to be world PvP more. World PvP wasn't really a thing when I started playing at that point. All I heard were the stories of the glory days of not just world PvP, but you would have to go run to your battleground, and um, All-Track Valley would take hours upon hours, if not days upon days, to complete, and things like that. So, um, yeah, I was expecting people to complain about war mode, and it really seems like people are embracing it and kind of running with it. So I'm excited. I've seen groups or I was in a group for Hellfire, the three PvP towers that are there in Outlands. There's about 4 or 5 of us against against about I think 4 or 5 horde, and yeah, so it was kind of cool. Um, and then I've seen more groups wanting to raid on both sides. I've seen more groups wanting to raid capital cities and things like that. So I'm excited. It feels like um, more of the game is useful now. I remember questing through um, Hellfire and Hellfire Peninsula, and those three PvP towers are just kind of there, and you'd kind of fly over and you'd go, "Oh, that's." I remember thinking several different times, "Oh, that's kind of sad. They're just there, and nobody does anything with them anymore." Um, and now that's not true. So it not to repeat myself, but it feels like parts of the game are relevant again, have been brought back in. So um, yeah, and I think that was it. To I didn't talk about raids because talking about raids would be talking about Legion raids. By the time we get to end game of Battle for Azeroth, we're going to have different gear, and people should be more familiar with their classes by then and things like that. So I imagine it'll be a bit different experience than launch day. So yeah, there you go, folks. So I would stress my takeaway for this video was to say that I would say there's a bit of a learning curve with the stats change. So yeah, just kind of take this time to just kind of mess around, and I've just been kind of hopping around different tunes, just setting the talent back up and just either doing PvP or doing um, something just to mess around, just to go do something different. Not really a lot going on right now. So, yeah, there you go, folks. Hope hope you enjoyed that. Hope that was helpful for you in some way. And thank you for watching.